another good friend of ours, 79 seconds, might pop into this. Oh, he's here. Let's see if I can get you guys to hot swap on the. Hey, Ross. As he unmutes himself, I need to also have him sign a disclaimer that he will be he will be officially on the live stream. This is how exciting this and raw this is. Thank you, Mr. C Sharp. Um, as Ross is coming in, hi Ross, are you have you joined us?
I have.
Hi. Oh, it's good to see you. You guys are going to flip back and forth just the way Zoom meant it to be. You're live streaming with us right now, Ross. I just want to let you know.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Great. For those of you watching, Ross and I also, just like Matt and I, go way back. Actually, Ross and Matt now go way back.
That's true.
Um,
That's really true.
it is true. So we have all worked together in some way, shape, or form. And so anyway, I thought, because I wasn't sure what we were going to do with this thing. KS Drive Through is jealous of your bookcase, Ross.
Well, don't be jealous of how many books I've read. I've read that one. No, this one. I can't remember. It's a wallpaper.
it's a Zoom
virtual
background. And so anyway, so I guess the original catalyst for this was I needed to have an excuse to do an evening or afternoon get together on the stream, because there are folks that whose schedules just cannot be accommodated with the early Eastern Seaboard time start that we do. So the question is, what do we do with this time? And I had originally thrown this terrible idea out that was, what if we just, and it was this simple, before we kind of get into where I think Matt was elaborating on it, and then Ross, I'd love your thoughts, and as we just start to get some folks in the chat contributing as well, the original idea was, what if we do sort of the same thing, it's sort of just an Imagivate live session, just happens to be in the evening, and it's like kind of a happy hour get together. So I put it right at the end of the day, at the end of the work day, 5:30 p.m., probably a safe time to believe that a lot of people could escape from their daily grind and make it into the stream. But just in case they couldn't, the fun might be, call it, name it like it's a meeting that would show up on somebody's calendar, and so generic, Q1 Europe, Middle East, and Africa revenue forecast. So for some giant global conglomerate, it's some finance meeting that would likely show up on just about anybody's calendar. And then have it there as a little bit of a hidden, like an Easter egg kind of thing, so that when on their calendar they can click in, hit the Twitch link, come hang out with us for half an hour and end their day in fun. So that was where we started. And then we had an Imagivate Live. We actually did the speed swirl on this, and some really interesting ideas came up. And one of those was, well, what if actually when people clicked through that link, there was a meeting going on? There actually was a meeting going on. And then comedy ensues. Matt, I think you kind of threw that out. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you remember where the genesis of that thinking, and has that evolved at all since we talked?
Yeah, I mean, the basic idea that kind of occurred to me comes out of something that we used to do maybe 10, 15 years ago called battle decks. I don't know if you guys ever played this, but the idea was you could create it, people in the stream could create it ahead of time, but they're basically nonsensical slides that are just put up randomly on the screen for people in the meeting to react to as if this is somehow meaningful. So for instance, like say there's just a picture of Tony Danza up on the screen. It's up to the people who are participating in the meeting to kind of take that and run with it as if that is somehow meaningful in a quarterly report or in the overall narrative that you've got going for that particular meeting. And so it's almost like an improv exercise where you don't know. You would kind of be the dungeon master in this regard, just putting up slides and saying, okay, can we hear from our weapons and sports drink division in Europe right now about, what you're forecasting? And then you put up the, whatever the nonsensical slide is, and then it's up to the smart, fun people with who are on the stream to kind of imagivate how to connect the dots there in fun and ridiculous ways.
Yeah.
Not just for the idea of improvisational thinking and bad ideas, but to just kind of blow the minds of anybody who might be wandering into this meeting and have no idea what this actually is or how any of this is actually meaningful in a business sense, and go off and start Googling what kind of company this is and what we actually do and stuff like that. So that was kind of the genesis of the idea.
I like that. But by the way, I have to throw a few things in here that have been coming through. Sports Sidecar said extravaganza. And then Ujako chimed in with, and these guys may be queuing up for being participants in this. Unfortunately, this quarter, we are down by 2 Tony Danza points. We're down by 2 Danza points. Well, that's interesting.
Way, every single thing needs to have the Andy Gasper sleep index. Every meeting, like that's got to be the centerpiece
the AGSI
of forecasting.
Yep, that was a big hit on the show. KS Drive-Thru says, unfortunately, we are facing stiff competition from Snoop Dogg, which is really impacting our share of the Danza market. Yeah, you can see where that could go. Although that's one of those things, Matt, where you've got to be really careful about how far you stretch the puns and the silliness, right? If you're really trying to keep anyone hooked into this might be a real thing, or does it pretty quickly devolve down into like, oh, what I'm watching is kind of a ruse?
Well, I think you can be kind of choiceful about how you do that. So, for instance, those slides might be graphs. You stick with graphs, but the scale. I remember putting together one where the scale was MILF to GGILF. That was the slide, and so somebody had to get up and immediately turn that into like a demographic study or some ridiculous thing. So, the slides that you put together ahead of time, it doesn't have to be Tony Danza. It can look kind of like maybe it's a pie chart, but the things in the pie chart are ridiculous enough or thematically just nonsensical enough that they can open themselves up to some imagination.
And it's a double troll kind of situation, right? Because you're trolling an audience, but then you're also playing a game with each other, right? Where it's like, can I stump you? Because I'm not going to show you if you're one of my cast members, I'm not going to show you the slides before we go out, right? So you're seeing this stuff for the first time, and that's the improv play of it. Okay, that's really cool. Yep, we still got plenty of jokes coming through on the Snoop Dogg Tony Danza front. Ross, what I forgive me, I don't know if 79 seconds made it into the oops, I just outed you. I don't know if you made it into the
go ahead and
into that session or not, but did you start to form any thoughts on what this meeting slot troll improv experience might be, or are you kind of coming in cold to this?
A little cold. I have played that game though at a Ignite series was a speaker series, and we used to take a volunteer from the audience and throw up a deck and have them present it, and they had never seen it before.
That's cool.
It was half ridiculous and half dry and half real. So if you actually have like an eye chart and a pie chart that's completely supposed to be serious, you have that interspersed with Tony Danza lookalikes.
What was the thing that you did? I can't remember the name. It had like sort of like a ancient Native American name for the number of slides, and that was like this sort of precise approach to slide storytelling, and it had a name that didn't sound like a business name. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Pechakucha.
Pechakucha?
Yeah, that's one version of it. The Ignite speaker series is another, where it's you get 20 slides, and you've got to go through, and you've got 5 minutes. So
let's talk about layers, because there's a top layer, right, where if you are completely unaware of Imagivate and all of that stuff, you may come in and think you're watching some sort of a meeting. So let's call that level A, like it's a meeting or a presentation or a webinar. Then there's the next layer down, which is you may be hip to, so this, let's call this B, and you may be hip to the fact that this is fun and interesting, but it's still this thing that you came to, right? That if we've got it as a Zoom webinar or it's or a WebEx kind of a thing, whatever it might be, that you might be like, oh, I get it. And I referenced Phil Hendry. Do you remember Phil Hendry, Ross? Do you remember that name?
Yes.
He was that kind of drive time radio guy that did the ruse where he would call in as his guest speakers, and they did this thing where he would toggle between like the sound of himself on the phone and then his radio DJ voice. I'm giving this rundown for everybody else. So the idea was that he would establish this conversation with somebody, and it was so well engineered and so precisely executed by him that the questions and the answers would start to get more and more outlandish, and you're like, wait a minute, is this a real person? Is this a real like he had this character that was Ted's Steaks or something, this restaurant, and he was like always coming on and trying to pitch the restaurant, and it was they would eventually get to the jingle, which was, we want to put our meat in your mouth, and then you're like, okay, wait a minute, this isn't a real guy, this isn't a real thing, right? And it was pretty, and in the end it was a pretty ham-fisted kind of thing, but what was so brilliant about that was Phil would do this in segments, and so you knew if you tuned in at a certain segment on the radio broadcast slot, he'd be doing the interview, and all it was a net to try to catch people who are just flipping around the dial, right? And they'd land on this, and they'd be like, and they'd start getting angry because his guest might have a really outlandish point of view, and then they wouldn't understand it was a ruse. They'd get upset. Then they would call into Phil and talk to the guest, who was actually just Phil. And then what you would do is like he would play this out in these segments. So each show you would know, like, I'm gonna get the troll's gonna happen. He's gonna pull in the fish, and then a lot of those folks would come in and they would get it. They'd be like, oh my God, this guy it's a ruse. This is hilarious. I'm going to come back next time because now I'm in on it. I'm in the secret club. I know that Phil's doing these voices. I think that's really funny. I might even tell friends about it to see if I can trick them into it, right? Sorry for that long dissertation.
No, this sounds, for somebody who has trouble with mute buttons, Troy, it sounds like the perfect technical challenge for you.
Son of a bitch. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, all I need is more technical challenge. By the way, that actually was something that, as I was getting ready to bring you guys up on this Zoom call, I was like, what am I doing? I don't need another layer of technical difficulty in anything in my life. Well, just to finish this thought then, that's the B layer, which is I get the ruse, but there's maybe a C layer, and maybe even further down.
Oh my gosh.
Which is, yeah, no, hold on. This is like the meta layer that is us, right? It's Twitch, it's Imagivate, it's this thing that's happening, and maybe this is happening simultaneously, right? Perhaps while we may have a cast of characters that are actually doing the meeting, perhaps we've got this Twitch stream happening at the same time, and it's in, I don't know. I mean, like maybe you come into Twitch and you're actually watching this presentation go down in a smaller screen, but you still have chat open, and now you're talking about this operation that this sort of Fight Club type operation that we're executing together, right? So now we've got a real inside club, meta layer of people who
can be feeding us lines, or
exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
I think they're happening in two universes, right?
Okay.
The meeting and the live stream.
Yep.
And they intersect at different points.
Okay, I like that.
Whenever people want them to.
Yep. Supports in along the same lines. Support Sidecar said Inception level stuff going on here. I suddenly want to disband my father's companies for some reason. Yeah. If you feeling that, it's an inception inside an inception, inside a dream state. I like that. Universes with brief overlaps, right? Lots of inside jokes for the C level, the low level audience, which could be really fun. And then, like you said, Ross, active contributions coming from the team. KS drive-through cannot let go of Snoop Dogg. They're waiting for the D to the double O to the double G layer. So we'll have to just make sure that we're accommodating D through double G, through
Well,
double
and
O,
you know, Troy, you
through
you
double
have a
G.
history of being able to kind of manufacture some kind of content out in the universe that kind of blurs the lines between what would be layer A and layer B,
Mm-hmm.
so that you get people who think it's a ruse, but if they go out and Google this company, they find an actual like landing page for the site, or they find some sort of materials that then makes them question whether or not this actually is a ruse. And
Yep.
that's where the most fun happens in those layers. And that's where I think the Imagivate audience can really like dig in and find ways to further conflate and confuse the the fun, the experience of the whole
Yep.
thing.
Yeah, that's true. For those of you who don't know, by the way, welcome. If you're new, I've seen people kind of coming in. If you're new to the stream, we are just concepting a sort of fun, trollish idea of hosting a simulated business meeting type thing, and then having a background underlayer with this Twitch audience kind of working through it. So we're talking through that. I've got Matt Bledsoe and I have Ross Fernetton with me, two great old pals. And actually, Matt and I created You Suck at Photoshop together. Some of you are aware of that, and you Suck at Photoshop did a lot of the stuff that Matt was talking about, created all these kind of weird tendrils of reality and maybe non-reality out there. Ross, you and I actually have done some of this kind of stuff too. In fact, I would say, Ross, you've done a ton of this stuff. You've done a ton of kind of trolley sorts of things. But we most recently did this thing with a character named Graham Brightsmith. What other stuff have you seen that you've done, or that you've maybe seen out there that feels like it might be a good sync up with this?
I'd love to actually end up producing something real out of nothing. Like, if I don't know if people have seen Nathan For You,
No.
the genius marketing guy who goes to a moving company who needs to, they're not getting hired enough, and he says, what you need to do is make moving an exercise. So then he goes to hire somebody to write the book called The Movement, which is just a new exercise phenomenon, and then it becomes an actual book that you can buy.
Yeah.
And so
That's
I
awesome.
love the idea of like, reality sort of.
It yields something in.
Yeah.
Manifests something in the real world. Okay.
Yeah.
Where do we find Nathan For You, Ross? Was that recent, or is that an older?
Oh
kind
no,
of
that's
thing?
because it's still going on. You would love it, Troy. That's right up your alley.
Okay.
It is.
Yeah, you can
Cool,
find his
check that out.
videos on YouTube and Instagram.
On Netflix too.
Yeah. Little BFAT Brain says, "There goes Troy's weekends for the next 5 years." Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Say bye bye.
Well, I'm pretty sure you already made that clear with the drop of the new massively multiplayer online game that's coming out, right?
That's right. Yeah, it won't be hard enough to do this. We'll have to also create an MMORPG based on this. Yeah, that's sure to happen. Anybody in chat, what have you been thinking as we've been talking through this? Would you be interested in coming along for a sort of a second layer experience, where I think what we would have to really, really do is, it may be that I need like one of you guys, Matt or Ross or somebody, to actually be the host of the meeting or something. There's no way that I could do both of these things successfully, right? So we may actually need a few key players in this thing, frankly, because there's got to be like somebody who is 100% laser focused on making sure that experience is on the rails to whatever extent it needs to be, right? And that it's that reality is being maintained, and then some sort of moderation back here. And I'm not suggesting that. I don't know. I guess the we got to figure out where the magic lies, and then make sure that it's all being stewarded properly. But it definitely, I'm saying it out loud. It goes way beyond what I'm going to be able to do capably on my own. So somebody may be signing up for something at some point.
I will say that Ross already has a very impressive Zoom background that's just kind of built in, and I feel like he could easily run a some sort of business or be a consultant or something important. Um, I'm fully invested in his ability to. Yeah, there you go.
Sorry, there's something wrong with my video. I've got to, you guys, I have to leave. Sorry. I'm not sure what's happening.
It's Bourbon Vision. I think that's what happened. Your
Yeah.
the bourbon plugin is failing.
Right.
Um,
Well, I think I think you just start and then you explore a little different. I think the most fruitful path might be to have it as straight as possible.
Yeah.
Like,
mm-hmm.
oh my God, have I, and see how long you can maintain that.
Yes.
I think when Ellen DeGeneres started her stand up, she would go on stage with a Subway sandwich, like the foot long, and she would tell all of her jokes eating through the sandwich, and you could pretty much not even understand her.
But she would just hung with it
like,
and just made all the way through that
just
sandwich.
all the way through, and after like 15 minutes, people are like, "What the hell?" Like they couldn't even. She was. It was unintelligible, and it was perform. I mean, it was performance art as much as stand up. But it would be interesting to just see how straight.
Yeah, that's like Andy Kaufman level of
Yeah.
commitment,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then before you know it, we all think we work for this company, and
And then maybe that's the real
real
thing, right? That's what really comes out
it
of this
becomes
is
the
a
real
company.
thing, and then our real jobs slide, and we get put on performance
Too
review.
late.
We end up getting let go, and so I think
That's the dream.
fascinating. That would be the dream, right?
Yeah. All right, I like that. I do agree with you that that's what Matt and I were kind of talking about. Ross, maybe just as you were joining with the battle decks, right? That there's a certain threshold of absurdity that we just have to be able to kind of hold ourselves back from, so that we don't lift that curtain too soon or too often.
Yeah.
And I do think that this doesn't have to be. It is going to be complex. I think in the fact that this is what I love about this. By the way, is that we're talking about something that probably really has never been done before, right? Which is fun. It's also going to come with some challenges, I think, as far as just executing it. But it doesn't. I like the concept of the presentation doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be over engineered. I'm saying these things out loud because these are the things that I do, and so I'm putting that out into space. That this needs to be simple.
Yeah.
It needs to. It needs to work quickly, I think, right? Like you just need to be able to jump in and
Well, yeah, we're busy executives, Troy. We don't have more than, we have to get through the financial forecast for first
that's
quarter.
right.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I totally understand what you guys are talking about.
Okay, so let's see. We've got KS Drive throughout. We definitely need a mobile app based on the franchise we're going to develop. Yep. Are you raising your hand, KS Drive Through? That's what we need. We need hand raisers right now. What else? Does anybody else have any thoughts, Snoop Dogg or non-Snoop Dogg related, before we kind of wrap this up? This is great. I'm sorry that this wasn't. Actually, I'm not sorry at all. I'm glad that we didn't have this thing cooked up in any way yet. I love that this is happening just off the cuff. Thank you guys for joining, Matt and Ross, and I hope maybe we can actually do this again, like this, and progress this. I actually have. This is one thing I'll throw out just as you guys are thinking about this. I have a pretty big guest scheduled for Thursday, November 11th at 5:30 p.m. So we don't necessarily have to use this mechanism to host that person. Think of it as it was an Imagivate live guest that just couldn't do the mornings. And so I put this evening slot in, but I already sort of teased it with him. So he would be game to do something probably a little weird and bizarre. I'm just throwing it out there because if you're thinking about this over the next few days, maybe we regroup next week sometime. Mm-hmm. Can you bring a guest in, and maybe like somebody who's maybe this is like more of an improv guest, right? Maybe we're bringing in like a fun comedian type person that kind of slots in with the cast, and maybe that's a thing that happens. I don't know. I'm not sure, but if this could accommodate some sort of and the terrible idea concept, how do we kind of keep that in check? And maybe we do, maybe we don't. Anyway, those are questions to throw out there for you guys to chew on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the whole premise of the idea is it's a terrible idea.
Yes, yes. That's usually how these things go. That's about right.
But it's not a bad decision yet.
No.
It's a terrible idea.
But it's not a bad decision
yet.
But you're right that we are about to enter into decision territory, and we can make good decisions and we can make bad decisions, right? Yeah, that's exciting. Jaco, what if the subject of the meeting is that the corporation is making a major market move in changing their sole product from golf balls to adult pleasure toys? It's already writing itself. It's already writing itself. Jaco, I know you're getting loaded up for the Thinkubator, and I need to as well. We'll be doing that in 30 minutes. Folks, if you want to kind of hang out and do some more of this riffing with us, that's what we do here on the Imagivate Network. In 30 minutes, we're going to be talking about the real actual people Battle Royale card game, and we've been making lots of fun progress. If you've been hanging around the Discord, that it's going to be fun this evening. If not, maybe we'll catch you tomorrow morning at Imagivate Live or sometime in the future. Ross, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Matt, thanks. Have a great evening.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, guys, and we'll catch you again soon.
All right. I'll get that.